Armageddon. A final war. Judgment Day. But what if what you've been told is nothing but a lie? What if the end isn't trumpet blasts and 4 horsemen of the apocalypse riding on high, but a jailbreak? Today we're diving into the Gnostic vision of the end times and the afterlife that follows, a vision both haunting and hopeful, and completely unlike anything that you've ever heard before. The book of Revelations opens up with thunderous and surreal series of visions. A scroll sealed with 7 seals, trumpets that summon divine judgment. A cataclysmic event that ripples through heaven and earth. We're told of horsemen bringing conquest, war, famine, death. There's also a dragon, a beast rising from the sea, and eventually the sounding of the 7th trumpet, which heralds the kingdom of the world becoming the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. However, despite the dramatic imagery and its placement at the end of the New Testament, most modern scholars are skeptical of the author and that it was John the Apostle. Instead, they argue that the text was likely written by a different John, a John of Patmos, an exiled prophet around 95 CE. This figure doesn't claim to be one of the 12 disciples, and his Greek is more crude and stylistically distinct from the Gospel of John. So what did the Gnostics, the first century Christians, what was their end times? To understand the Gnostic Armageddon, we first need to understand how the Gnostics viewed the universe. In mainstream Christianity, God is the creator of all, and the world is good. Fallen, yes, but good at its core. In Gnosticism, not so much. The material world is nothing but a trap, a prison, a jail cell, created by a lesser-known deity called the Demiurge. Sometimes this Demiurge and this god is linked to the Old Testament. This being is often ignorant and even malevolent, keeping humans soul bound in this physical matter. Here's a quote from the Apocrypha of John. He said, "I am God, and there is no others beside me." For he did not know the place from which his strength had come. So the world is not a gift, it is a prison, and your body is the cage. So what is Armageddon to a Gnostic? Now, Armageddon literature during the 1st century, 2nd century, was all over the place. There was so much of it. Everyone and his dog wrote an apocalyptic book. It was actually a genre. There was a massive genre of the apocalypse, these visions that people had. They brought down. There's all sorts of different apocalyptic books. And Revelations almost didn't make the final cut at the Council of Carthage. It was argued so much that it shouldn't be included and that it should. However, that book of Revelations was mainly talking about Rome and the number of the beast, 666 or 616, depending on who you kind of ask. It kind of just decrypted into Nero, or Neron, depending on how you want to spell it. So, the whole end of the world thing with hell and pitchforks and lakes of fire is quite a modern invention. The 1st century Gnostics, their Armageddon isn't destruction, it's a cosmic jailbreak. The real enemy isn't Satan, it's ignorance. The war is internal. Gospel of Thomas, saying 3, says, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and is outside of you." So the key point here is that Armageddon in Gnosticism is a war of awakening, an apocalypse of consciousness, not of carnage. In traditional Christianity, the dead rise, are judged, and then go to heaven or hell. In Gnosticism, it's very different. Very different. And in some ways more personal. The soul ascends through a realm called the aeons, facing archons, which are like cosmic gatekeepers. These beings try to pull the soul back into the illusion, and that illusion is the material world, so it tries to pull it back into reincarnation or bondage into the human vessel. If the soul carries gnosis, it gives a sort of password or a sign that, as it passes through the archons, allows it to proceed to the next layer up. And if it supersedes and goes throughout all of them, then the soul is free from the life and death that is the life cycle of being stuck in a material world. Book of Pristis Sophia says, "Say to the archons of the aeons, I am son of the pre-existing one, and I come from the pre-existing one. Judgment isn't about sin, it's about whether you've spiritually awoken or not." So what about the afterlife? What happens after you've died and managed to get out? Well, for the Gnostic who's awoken, death is just liberation. Their soul returns past the lower realms, past the archons and the demiurge's illusions, and merges back in with the pleroma, the fullness, the true divine source. There is no hell in the Gnostic afterlife, only reincarnation for the ignorant and return to the light for the awakened ones. The Gospel of Philip writes, "Those who say they will die first, then rise, are in error. If they do not receive the resurrection while they live, when they die, they will receive nothing." So you don't wait for the afterlife to get it right. You awaken now, or you keep cycling over, and over again. However, maybe you're not a Gnostic. Maybe you're not even religious. But the Gnostic vision of the end of the world offers a haunting challenge. What if your apocalypse isn't coming? Maybe it's overdue. In this story, the villains aren't atheists or demons. The villain is forgetting who you are. The Gnostic end of the world doesn't burn the world down. It burns away the lies. So when they ask, are we in the end times? The Gnostic's answer will always be, have you awoken? If this blew your mind on the worldview of the first century Christians who didn't call themselves the Gnostics, they just called themselves Christians, but was later labelled as Gnostics and was part of a very diverse view and arrangement of early Christians from the first century, then you're looking into the beginning of what I've been researching for a fair few years now. So feel free to drop a subscribe, leave a comment, check out some other things. If you check out my previous video that should be up here, then you'll see how the Catholic Church hijacked Christianity and changed it from what it once was into what it is now. Thanks for watching.